There is something I didn't tell you about Galton. He had a famous older cousin. His name was Charles Darwin. Now, I'm not going to talk in detail about Darwin's contribution to biology and science. I just want to put Galton's work in the context of evolution. He was an admirer of his cousin, and he started to provide statistical methods and measurements in order to advance the theory of evolution. So let's briefly explain what's the theory of evolution about. So in The Origin of Species in 1859, Darwin proposed a revolutionary idea about evolution. Now, evolution was not what it was revolutionary. There were many theories of evolution before Charles Darwin. What's revolutionary is the process by which evolution occurs. So, before Darwin, we've seen that materialist philosophers and scientists got rid of the idea of a purposeful universe when we talked about objects, particles. But the idea of purpose in the universe, when we talk about living organisms, was still strong. So Charles Darwin said that species change, and they change without any purpose. So what's that process? And remember, Charles Darwin developed this theory independently from Wallace, Alfred Russel Wallace, and they agreed in present this theory together. Now, what's this theory? Charles Darwin proposed that the organisms replicate, and when they replicate, there are small random variations. There is a small change from the parents to the offspring. Now, these small changes, they are sometimes irrelevant. And when there is reproduction, they return to the original. So most of these changes are like this. But if you think about evolution that happens in the range of millions of years, not thousands, but millions of years, then these small changes accumulate and they may change the whole species. Now, the key for that is that the change had to survive in an organism, and that organism must be able to reproduce, because if the organism does not reproduce, that change is lost in the species. So, random variation produces changes in the offsprings, and then if these offsprings reproduce, then the species acquires a variability. And the accumulation of changes producing major changes in the species. And that's how the different species appear. That's the process of natural selection. Now, Darwin went a bit further. In The Descent of Man in 1871 and in The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals in 1872, he departed from his friend Alfred Russel Wallace. Wallace said this process applies to all living organisms, but not to humans. But for Darwin, there is no difference whatsoever. Humans are one species, and the way they appeared is the same way that other species appeared, by random variation, then selection, that means that some of these variations are in organisms that are able to reproduce and some are not. So by selection, that variation continues, and then there is a change in small changes that accumulate, and they can change the whole nature of the species.